brought home a lot of pets that did not get to stay. So it was only like more recently that I discovered, no, she really does love animals. Like when we go for a walk and the neighbor's out with their dog, that's the first thing, she wants to see their dog. And she was just practical, right? Because ultimately she did relent, and I did have cats and a dog and guinea pigs and fish and tadpoles and frogs and mice. So maybe it wasn't. I might not have been as deprived as I thought. So Mom grew up on a farm in Indiana, and she didn't have the luxury of electricity or running water till she was 5. Times are different, aren't they? She got to go to a one-room schoolhouse, which she loved, and part of the fun for that was that she could do all of her work really quickly and then listen to what they were doing in the higher grades. And so she excelled at school. She skipped a grade eventually because she was paying attention and learning from everybody. When she was 10, she moved to California, and then they were back and forth California to Indiana every year up until high school. And high school is when Mom met Dad, and eventually she put her foot down and said, I'm not going back to Indiana. I don't care who I stay with, but I'm staying here because she and Dad, I think from the moment they met, knew that they were right for each other, and they did. They had a long life. So we all remember Mom as being sweet and kind and loving, and she was all of those things. And she was also persistent, determined, fun. She gave really wise advice, and she was insightful, and she had a little bit of an adventurous side that we didn't usually get to see. But a story that I think of that represents that is she didn't learn to drive until after she was married. And then when she did learn to drive, she drove for 5 years before she ever got a driver's license. So as a result, she was always a very careful driver, and she lived her entire life without ever getting a ticket. So she liked to play all kinds of games, and especially cards. She was an exceptional bridge player, and I can tell you, even in her later years when it was harder for her to play cards, all you had to do was get out the deck of cards and start shuffling it, and her whole face would light up. She just loved the whole idea of it. She also, she and Dad were so together, trusted each other completely, relied on one another, but they didn't feel like they had to do everything together, which was also a lovely thing. And so Mom made, she did her own things, but one of the things that she would do is go visit family in Indiana or other family members. As we moved all around the country, she would go visit. And when she was almost 90, she traveled by herself to Texas for her great-granddaughter Avery's high school graduation. So I told you she was a She loved her family dearly, always was thinking about us and the people that we care about. When Mom and Dad had retired and lived close to me in Carlsbad, one of the things that she did was every week she would collect a bag of stuff for me. And you never knew what was going to be in the bags, photographs, books, recipes, articles she read that she thought I'd be interested in, comic strips that were relevant. Sunday coupons for my friend Sandy. Every week for years and years and years, they have this whole drop them off at the credit union thing. It was, yeah. Just, you know, to me, that represented the way she was always thinking about us. And she loved taking care of us. So, most of us, whenever we moved, who was right there to help? Mom was there. Probably everyone in our family has shelf paper that she installed or had it at one of the...
You okay?
Because, oh my gosh, Mom loved music. And in her house, for example, as we were going through things, there were 3 big boxes of albums and 5 trays of CDs. And anything she could, and it was all different kinds, right? Like she wasn't so fond of rock and roll, but everything else, swing, Frank Sinatra, big bands, holiday music, Sousa marches. She loved all of that. And Sousa was something she used to motivate her children on Saturday mornings on chore day. That was how we would be awakened on Saturday morning. Dun, 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 dun. And then the remarkable thing is that all of us still love that music, even though it was We are so grateful that all of you have joined us. And when many of you, when you have been at Mom's house visiting, she might have asked you if you wanted some jade. And there's a little story about the jade because she, in the 60s, collected some jade at an aunt and uncle's house and eventually planted it in the yard. And from that jade, 60 years ago, every home that Mom and Dad moved to, she planted jade. And the current house, where they had been for 25 years, has jade all along both sides of I mean, it's growing profusely. And I brought a whole bunch of jade from the yard, and I invite you to take a piece, plant it in your yard, and then you can think of Mom when you see it and it grows, and let it proliferate throughout your life. Thank you all. And I am going to introduce now my niece, Michelle, who is going to talk to you about whatever she wants to talk to you about.